Good afternoon, everyone. I am your host, Rachel Walbrown, and plenty of teams are getting medals today and tomorrow, so be sure to follow us on social media at Transplant Games to keep up with your favorite teams. Sitting down with me now, I have Kelly Hancock, and you are the Executive Chief Nursing Officer for the Cleveland Clinic. Is that right?
That is right, I am.
You kind of run the whole operation, so kind of tell me how you're involved with the organ transplant operation.
Sure, so in my role, I have the pleasure of leading 20,000 nursing caregivers across our Cleveland Clinic health system. And so as you know, when you look at patients who are involved in the transplant program, a vital caregiver is a nurse. So clearly nurses play a pivotal role in the care of those patients while they're getting, working with them while they're getting a transplant, during the procedure, clearly in our ORs and afterwards. So a lot of work behind the scenes.
So that is a lot of nurses to kind of keep track of. So
it is.
How do you make it such a well-oiled machine?
Oh my gosh, it really takes a dynamic team. I am so lucky to have such a great team in place and really talented group of caregivers who make it happen each and every day, committed professionals.
So kind of tell me the nurse's role in the transplant journey.
Sure. So there's a variety of roles that a nurse plays, particularly when you're taking care of a patient with a transplant. So a lot of behind the scenes work, as I mentioned, so working with the families, working together with the other team members, our physicians, our pharmacists, our social workers, and it's really a special connection that they make with that patient and their family. So they really do a lot of behind the scenes work. And then obviously as we gear up to care for those patients during the transplant, our nurses play a pivotal role in the OR. So with the organ procurement piece of it, while they're transplanting the patient, and clearly afterwards, taking care of the patient, our nurses do while they're in the hospital and following them at home. So they really play a very pivotal role across the whole care continuum in the journey of these patients with their transplants.
And you weren't always kind of running the show. You were once a caregiver yourself, is that correct?
That is correct, so yes.
Kind of tell me how it felt being a caregiver and now in your role as being the leader of those.
Sure, so it's ironic. So when I was a practicing registered nurse, I took care of patients who had open heart surgery as well as heart transplants and those waiting for a heart transplant. So one of the greatest gifts for me as a professional nurse and a caregiver was the opportunity to care for those patients first and foremost, but to let them know when we got the call that there was an organ available. I can't tell you the pleasure that I experienced personally as a caregiver, getting in and delivering that message and getting them ready to go down for that transplant. So now as my career over 25 years at the Cleveland Clinic has really covered a variety of different things, I lead and I care for patients differently by the way that I make decisions for our organization as it relates to nursing.
So people come from all around the world to the Cleveland Clinic specifically.
They do.
So can you kind of tell me what makes Cleveland Clinic so special and why it's such a renowned company?
Well, first and foremost, I think when you look at our guiding principle of our organization, it's putting our patients first. And it goes back to the mission, better care of the sick. And so all of the 49,000 people who work at the Cleveland Clinic Health System are committed to that vision and that mission of the organization. So in my opinion, we have the cream of the crop who work at the Cleveland Clinic, and clearly the care that we provide from a clinical standpoint and the outcomes, but more importantly the experience, I think is really second to none. And so in my opinion, we do a fabulous job.
And you talked a little bit about, getting that mission out there and experience. Now, the Transplant Games is all about spreading awareness for organ donation and also about experiencing a community. So kind of tell me why you guys are such a good fit for the Transplant Games.
Oh my gosh, I mean, clearly we believe in the transplant. That is really the beauty of what we do is we look at those gifts and clearly support the mission of the overall Transplant Games. And so we're really proud to be a sponsor and to really be here and be present in this exciting time.
So as you have been in your personal life, as a nurse and a caregiver, what do you think is so special about the Transplant Games being here in Cleveland?
Well, I think when you look here in Cleveland, particularly where the Cleveland Clinic is, it's really the destination for care. And so I think it is really important for the city of Cleveland. As you know, we're seeing a tremendous lot of energy and synergy. With the convention coming into town and now the Transplant Games, I couldn't think of a more perfect destination given where we are in healthcare in the city of Cleveland.
For sure. And, as a doctor and as someone who's overseeing everything, kind of what's your standpoint as leading the transplant kind of community? and making sure that better care is given to everyone?
Sure. So clearly the care that we give from a nursing standpoint and really the overall team, because it really is about the team. So it's really interesting when you're being here with the transplant games and looking at the different teams, if you will, that are competing. It takes a team to care for those patients, right, who are receiving the transplant. So we make sure that all of our protocols are evidence-based. We have the newest and the latest research to back those protocols. Make sure that we give the best possible treatments to those patients and the outcomes, and more importantly, the experience. So we do a lot, particularly myself as a leader, in providing that education for our frontline nurses in those variety of settings that I mentioned that take care of those patients, to make sure that they're up to date on the most important information they need to deliver the care that they want to for our patients.
And you know, there are so many people waiting for organ donations. So is there anything that the Cleveland Clinic is doing to kind of help spread awareness and get people on that registration list?
Well, clearly, I think when you look at all of our members, particularly of our transplant programs across the entire health system, there clearly is an awareness. And you mentioned, you know, a sense of community with the Transplants Games here. Clearly our obligation, not only in our immediate area of the Cleveland Clinic, but to the greater community, is to create that awareness. So we hold different sessions out and about in the community. We partner, you know, with, you know, programs such as the Transplant Games, just to make sure that they know our support and create that awareness that's needed for the greater community.
And as your time as a nurse and here at the Cleveland Clinic, you know, plenty of joy and life happening, but there's a lot of, you know, kind of sad parts too. Not everyone gets their organ, not everyone's organ takes. So can you kind of walk me through a little bit of that?
Sure. So you're right, there is a lot of great things that happen when you talk about transplant. So I mentioned the joy that I had as a clinical nurse and telling the patient, but also I also experienced letting them know that an organ was available, and then they come back and perhaps it just wasn't a fit for a variety of reasons. So I had the privilege of going with that patient and their family during that journey of kind of helping them grip with that and come to terms with that. And so I think as caregivers, we have to recognize not only are we there through those good times, but we're also there to shepherd them through those times that are of some opportunity and some difficulties for them.
Well, the Cleveland Clinic is definitely a great place to go just for even talking purposes and really kind of learning more about the transplant process. So thank you so much for being here with me, Kelly.
Oh my gosh, Rachel, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Welcome back to the TGA Village. I'm your host, Rachel Walbrown, and joining me today, I have someone who's kind of responsible for bringing the games to Cleveland. Now, you are the CEO, David Bowen, of OPO Life Bank here in Cleveland. Is that correct?
Yes, Gordon Bowen, CEO of Life Bank here in Cleveland, and we promote organ, eye, and tissue donation in about 20 counties, about 80 hospitals here in Northeast Ohio. So it's about getting the need out for more registered organ, eye, and tissue donors and saving and healing lives every day.
Now, I talked to someone earlier who said that you kind of were part of the proposal to bring the games to Cleveland. Is that correct?
We were. So part of the proposal is you have to have a local organ procurement organization that buys in, that helps with the bidding process, helps put the bid together. We bring the legacy piece. You know, we're really tied to doing great events with donor families and supporting the donor families, and with the donor families being a huge proponent of the transplant games, being able to come here, sharing their life stories with all the recipients. It's an inspirational opportunity, so we bring that piece to the games.
So you're a Clevelander yourself, correct?
I am in Cleveland. I've been here 15 years and been saving and healing lives for 30 years.
That's fantastic. So thank you so much for all the work that you have done.
Yeah.
What does it mean, since you are a resident here, to bring these games to your own home?
I think it's great. I mean, you know, transplantation is all about success, and I think some people feel that it's not. And I think that, you know, you see these people, you know, playing all these different games and competing, and then you see the donor families put the medals around their neck when they medal. It's phenomenal. And I think, you know, us being here in Cleveland, I mean, it's an economic boom for Cleveland, but for us, it's much more than that. It's about saving and healing lives. Get the need, that there's the need for more registered organ, eye, and tissue donors, and what can we do to make that happen?
So what does Life Bank kind of do for organ donation? Do you make the list and you kind of create that?
So what happens is when someone passes on, they call that death into Life Bank, and then we screen them to see if they're a candidate for organ, eye, and tissue donation. If that's the case, then we dispatch a team to the hospital. We work with the family. If they're a registered donor, we can pull that up to see if they're registered, and then that's a binding donor. So we can move forward with donation, work with the family, the hospital. We manage the donor, we coordinate, we place the organs, we arrange the teams to come in, we recover the organs, we send them on their merry way to a new home, and then we follow our donor families for up to 2 years. So that whole process is about 36 to 48 hours when that death occurs.
So you're kind of like that bridge, that transportation from, the organ to the new recipient. Is that correct?
We're the bridge from like the donor hospital to the transplant center, and we work with the families to make sure that donation goes as smooth as possible, and we can recover as many organs as possible for that 125,000 people that are currently waiting.
And so you're kind of in the midst of getting all of that going. So like 125,000 people waiting, correct?
In the United States, and it's about 3,000 right here in Ohio. And 1,900 of those are right here in Northeast Ohio. So bringing the games to Cleveland just pronounces the importance, and it showcases Cleveland as a great city, but also it's a warm city that really cares about the people that are here.
And, you're kind of in the midst of changing lives, because 85 people today will receive that life-changing organ, but a lot of people aren't going to be getting that organ that they need today, and they'll eventually pass on. So what do you have to say to the person who's going into the DMV and when they're asked if they want to be an organ donor?
I think anything we can do to get people to be informed about donation and to sign up and carry on their way. We know, like in Ohio, we know 90% of Ohioans think donation is a great thing to do. However, we only have 60% of them on the registry. So whatever we can do to continue to educate them and get them to say yes to donation. Most people will say that down the line, but to get them on there, that's a decision that's already been made in advance. So when someone does die unexpectedly, and most of our deaths are tragics, that decision's been made. So that's one decision, less decision a family has to think about. So we say, think about it early, make the decision, sign up to be a registered donor, and tell your family.
So you said part of your thing is to educate others. So what's kind of something that keeps people from being an organ donor?
I think the biggest misconception was out there is that if I'm registered and I come into the emergency room, that the physicians won't save my life if they know I'm a registered donor. In fact, we're not called until that death has already occurred. So we really separate ourselves from the hospital care, and once the physicians and nurses have done everything they can to try to save that individual, we're only called once they're dead, brain dead. And then we come in and work with the families and the hospitals at that point. So it's a really big misconception, but I think we're getting through that.
So what's your biggest goal while your group is out here this week?
I think it's just, celebrate life. It's about, you have donor families here that lost someone, in their life, and they're able to see, what happens when that gift gets passed on to all the thousands of recipients that are here, and be able to share that, and be able to, hug complete strangers, be able to put a medal around their neck, as I mentioned earlier, just the camaraderie, because it's about life. Someone lost life, but that life got passed on. And we hear that over and over. Donor families will say, you know what, the Life Bank, you helped save my life. You helped me get through that tragic situation. And they're able to bring that love and that care and share that with all the recipients here this week. So that's the most important thing. Clearly we're here about getting people registered if you're not registered, but really it's just about life.
Life Bank is really kind of changing the lives of people for the future when they really need it. So thank you so much for sharing all about what your company does. Thanks so much, Gordon.
Oh, thank you so much. We're glad to be here, and thanks for helping us get the word out.
No problem. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
with a Mid-South member, Bobby, and you are a competitor and a recipient, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
So heart transplant, is that correct?
I am.
Tell me a little bit about your story.
Well, I got home from work one day and my back felt a little sore, so I thought I'd just go lay down and take a rest. And the next day it didn't feel any better, and I just laid there thinking I'll go to the chiropractor, and I just felt too bad to get up and go. So on the second day, my husband said, "No, we're going to the hospital." And then my, as they did what they did there, they did a camera up into my heart, and the cardiologist there started scolding me. He said, "Why didn't you come in sooner?" And I said, "I didn't know I was having a heart attack. I had no symptoms. I was totally asymptomatic." And so at that point, about 75 to 80% of my heart had already kind of died, and my journey started there. I had a pacemaker put in, and that didn't work real well. One of the leads perforated my pericardium, and that caused me to code, and that caused me to code again, and then after that I had to go on dialysis, and I had my thyroid didn't come back, and so the road took me to the following year, where as I didn't get better, I felt okay, but I just wasn't really as healthy as I could be. And so they decided they would put in a Milrinone pump, and then from that point I went on the transplant list, and in about 3 months I got a heart transplant, and that was, like I said, not quite 18 months ago, but I walked the 5K and I came in 4th in my division.
Good job.
Yeah, and my partner and I are advancing right now in the cornhole.
I love that game.
Second grade. I've never played it before.
Oh, really?
It's the first time I ever touched it.
And you're advancing, so congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. We did real well.
Is this your first time in Ohio?
Yes, it is. Well, I've been to Cincinnati with some other business. But,
Okay. First time in Cleveland then?
Yes.
And so how are you liking it?
It is congested here.
Definitely a lot of people.
Yeah, well, they were filming the Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah, I saw them filming it.
So they had all these, streets blocked off and crashed cars everywhere. And
Hillary Clinton's in town today too, so it's even crazy.
I want to go see her. I really want to go see her. And then they were also getting the construction for the RNC, and so everything was stopped up. But it wasn't bad. We're riding a shuttle from the airport back. If I was driving, I'd probably be crazy.
So, why are you so excited to be here at the games?
Because there is such incredibly positive energy coming out of this convention hall, and just everybody I've talked to has been so positive and so up about everything that's going on, and just the whole raising of awareness of the importance of how many lives can be extended through this help. It's awesome.
It's incredible.
And
really.
I hate that word.
So, are you in contact with your donor family?
Not yet. I have the letter written, but I haven't turned it in because mine happened right around Christmas, and I thought that would be a real raw time for them.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe now in June, in the middle of the year, it might be a better time. I mean, I'm sure they're still raw. They're still hurting and healing, but it wouldn't be as traumatic as if I sent it at Christmas time.
Yeah. So, what do you really want to say to other donor families out there?
As a donor recipient, I just don't know how to say how grateful I am. I don't know how to reach out and say, you've made my life amazing, and I have a second chance.
For sure, and definitely living for them and
I am
helping
living
that
to
life.
the fullest. I am more busy now than I have been in a really long time.
Well, you definitely deserve that second chance. But there's a lot of people waiting for their second chance. So, any what would you say to someone who's waiting for their organ?
Take care of your diet, and if you can exercise, and stay really positive if you can. Stay as positive as you can.
Well, this event is definitely full of positivity, and you are just a ray of sunshine, Bobby. So thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Well, I received the liver on Thanksgiving Day in 2008, and so ever since then I've been committed to trying to give back and do something that benefits becoming a donor. I educate people in my community about, transplant, the options. They can be a live donor, or they can, register on their driver's license to be a donor. So that's part of why I'm so grateful, like the guy was saying last night about being grateful to your donor. I have not met my donor's family. And so I always try to make sure that I'm making them proud as well as my family proud. Well, my journey after I got out of the hospital and got settled with all the medications and different things like that, you know, I decided after a year I did the CD. I wrote the song, The Money That Blessings Can't Buy. And I felt like I could have never purchased my health. And then for them to give me a second chance. And that's why that song is so important, you know, the blessings that money can't buy. I still have my family. I can see my son and my daughter, you know, and so that's important to me. And I want to share that message with everybody because people that have money, they can't buy it. Right, you have to be on the list. And, you know, it's not a respect of person, it's if your numbers match. And so that's my message, trying to get across to people. And now I've recently started a non-profit organization called TSS, which is Transplant Support Services. And that organization, I want to help people spend the first week with their loved ones at bedside if they don't have the funds. And so we can pay for room and board for that person. We just got, so about a year, we did our first gala fundraiser this year in April, which was a success, you know, so that was great. My hopes of that organization is to get funded, that we can educate people about the importance of organ donation. We can educate, and especially minorities, because they have this little stigma that, you know, they'll let me die and take my organs. But I always say, God don't need your organs in heaven. You know? So, but when it happens to your family or it happens to you, then you'll understand the importance. We don't want to wait till it gets that far. We want you to know now that it's okay to be a donor. You know, it's okay to put in your last will and testament that you want to give your organs to somebody. And it's not just organs, it's skin, it's eye tissue, it's eye, you know, all those things. You know, and we're trying to eliminate that ignorance, you know, and that's what that is about. We want to educate people, and we want to really make sure that immediate family members can be at bedside that first week. You know. And we experienced a little, I got lost when I was in the hospital. I went down for a procedure that morning, and they didn't find me till that afternoon around 6 o'clock. No pain med, no anything, you know. But if my family had not been there to say, well, where is she, and to look for me, you know, who knows the outcome. So, you know, that was the beginning of that. Yes, I would, because I think if they could come to the games, see what's going on, they would understand, you know, when they see people embracing each other, when they see people, the camaraderie that we have, and even though we might not be related, but we are. Every time I just wrote a song that says, every time I look in the mirror, I see you in me. And so therefore, I think they would get the feeling, because we brought people up, like 13 people up for the walks last year in Akron, Ohio, and they cried when they walked through the Memorial Garden. And every one of them became donors. When I did my live recording, all of my children became donors. My sisters, my brother became donors. And so now everybody that I meet, you know, I ask them, are you an organ donor? You know, well, what's that? So it opens up the door for me to explain to them, you know, that you ought to want to give back, pay it forward, you know. So that's my goal.
Lord, for my donor, I praise you. I praise you for the blessings money can't buy. Hallelujah. All praise and honor goes to God.
I'm sitting down here with Eric, and you are at the PSC booth, so I can't even pronounce this. Can you kind of help me out a little bit?
Yes. It's called PSC Partners. Primary sclerosing cholangitis is the disease. So it's a rare liver disease, 1 in 100,000 get it. And it's common in 40-year-old males, but truthfully anybody can get it.
And you had it yourself, is that correct?
Yes, I had it. I was diagnosed in 2010 when I was 12. And 3 years ago, I had a liver transplant. That's the only cure for the disease.
Okay, so kind of walk me through, what, do you work for the company that kind of like spreads awareness, or?
I am actually just a volunteer.
Okay.
But it's kind of a team effort with our group. You know, we have an annual conference, about 250 people attend, and it's like a family. We all work together.
So can you kind of tell me about the mission statement of this company?
Our mission statement is really just to create awareness for the most part, but try and raise money to help and find a cure that's better than a transplant.
And you were talking to me a little bit earlier, and you're saying that PSC is like the black box that no one can seem to crack.
Yes, doctors have called it the black box because it's really, they don't know what causes it. They don't know how to attack it, really, if that's how you want to phrase it.
So 3-year post-transplant, how are you doing?
Great. I really haven't felt better. I just got back from Clearwater Beach, so that's a plus. Yeah, life is good.
And you got a Cavaliers shirt on. Are you from the area?
I am from Canton, so about an hour away. So
how's it to have these games here in Cleveland?
It's amazing. It really is. It really showcases the city, and to have the finals downtown, and some other things going on, it's really great.
So you're a part of this community, and it's kind of ever-growing, ever-changing. What does being here in the village mean for you as, an organ recipient?
It's really heartwarming to see all the donor families come together and the recipients, because I've heard some amazing stories that, can bring me to tears, and I'm a recipient myself.
Mm-hmm. What would you have to say to someone, who has never traveled to the games?
I'd say do it. I mean, that's all you can say, really. It's a great opportunity. This is my first games. Mm-hmm. I'm not participating, obviously, but I've been over there. I've shot around with some guys and stuff, and it's really nice to talk to people who are in the same shoes as you.
And for that person who's walking into the DMV, either for the first time getting their license or, just renewing it, what do you have to say to them when they're asked if they would like to be an organ donor?
I'd say, have that conversation with your family for sure, but it's something that it leaves your legacy. If something were to happen to you, it creates a bond between your family and possibly the recipient that you can't recreate anywhere else.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me and telling me more about PSC. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, joining me now are two people who have both a professional and a personal relationship to the transplant games. Now, joining me are Michelle and Bella McGreevy, and you guys are kind of in charge of the Transplant House of Cleveland. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
So can you kind of tell me your personal journey?
Well, 11 years ago, my husband, her dad, had to have a liver transplant. He had a cancer that was in the liver, and they weren't going to be able to do much, so they said, let's try to get this done. And this was done at the Cleveland Clinic, where Dr. Charlie Miller was his transplant surgeon. Mm-hmm. And it was just a very scary experience. We had nowhere to stay. We had our whole family with 3 girls, and we had to stay 45 minutes away from the Cleveland Clinic. And it just was, something that we would have loved to have had, something like the Transplant House of Cleveland at the time, and didn't.
How far away were you from the Cleveland Clinic?
We were in Aurora, which is about 45 minutes, for any issue that he might have, so it was hard.
So tell me a little bit about what the Transplant House is.
The Transplant House of Cleveland is a place that almost 2 years ago was started because of that need, that there was nowhere for these families when they're waiting, when they're going through transplant, when they're recovering from transplant. It's like your whole family gets transplanted, not just, the one person, so you're all coming from somewhere else. And the nice thing about this is that now there's somewhere for these people to go. We have, apartment buildings now that have 15 apartments for them to stay in. Mm-hmm. The minute they were opened, it was full. It's full now, and the need is incredible, and there's this area where we have all the families that can get together, so they have each other as a community to support each other. You've got a patient who's going in and out of the hospital, and then you've got family, kids and things, everybody's just trying to go through their life and still try to be there. And so this location is centrally located for everybody, to be able to get to between the hospitals, and it makes it just really nice, so that everyone has somewhere to be and they're close and have each other.
Not only is the recipient majorly affected by this, but the family's life is turned upside down as well. So Bella, tell me a little bit what your life has kind of been like being the daughter of a recipient.
It's been crazy. It's been growing up without my dad around, and my mom always busy, staying around, being close to my grandparents, and it's been good now. He's been healthy for over how many years? 11 years, and so it's just great, really somebody to look up to, a dad a parent who's such a hero and gone through so much, and it's just really great actually have somebody to look up to who's survived so much. So it's been a lot, but my sisters and I have definitely become stronger from it all. So.
Mm-hmm. And you, the wife of a donor recipient, you know, you go from being just a wife to now a caregiver for not only your children, but your husband as well. So kind of tell me what your life, how it kind of changed.
It was a big, change. I mean, it was very scary. Mm-hmm. But at the time, the girls were 4, 3, and 1. I mean, like, they were little. I mean, there was they couldn't understand it, and it was my job to keep their life as normal as possible and still be with him every appointment, every hospital visit, everything that he had to do, go through the transplant. And this is when you count on other people, and thank goodness for us, we have family and friends and people that were there for us. But, so many times, people don't have that. They have to move from another state, from another country, and they need to be near the hospital. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was really a scary time. I counted on, family to help. But, I did everything possible for the girls to have no idea how serious this truly was. Because they don't get it. They were too small, right, at the time. And I can remember the day of his transplant, the call that I had to go up to the transplant house, and then it was her birthday and her sister's birthdays. I mean, she was turning 5, and I went back running with cupcakes for the school because she doesn't know. I mean, even on the day of the call, she was itty bitty, and then everyone's hugging and crying about this great moment.
And she's just
like,
I'm 5.
And she's like, Dad, don't forget my present. I mean, she had no idea, but, it's later in life, I think they've come to terms, with how serious this was, and what an amazing guy he is and what he's been through and what a role they've played, I mean, they've mm-hmm. become incredibly close as a result. And I think that, they now write essays about it. They want to be involved. I mean, she's doing all she can to, be a part of the Transplant House of Cleveland, volunteer and create fundraisers. And, she wants to create a walk. I mean, she had this idea.
Doing great then.
Yeah.
Really just continuing to spread the awareness and how important it is to check yes on that box and to be an organ, tissue, and eye donor. So tell me, I think you say 4% of people can have this transplant house. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
4% of people are only offered this
No, that there's
opportunity?
Only 4% of places where country or states where they have that option.
Oh, okay.
Like, there aren't very many places that you go where they can do a transplant that there's any housing. Mm-hmm. There's only very few states that have it, and we're one of very few, So the lady who started it is Marty Sargent, and she had opened one in New York. And when her husband got transferred here to the Cleveland Clinic, she said, I need one here. So she came up with the idea and got my husband involved and many other people. There's a gentleman, Brian Vitale, who has an amazing story. He also is a huge, donor to get this started. And my husband's now president of the board, trying to, create awareness as well, which is a really big thing for him to be able to give back too, because he, had a hard time with the idea of connecting with the donor, but was so grateful. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the girls tell all their friends now that they get their license, don't forget to check that box, mm-hmm. Be a donor, it's important.
So the goal is to kind of get it like the Ronald McDonald House, how that is worldwide, across everything, kind of getting it. So what are your plans to kind of expand the Transplant House?
Well, right now we're just, it's all run on donations. It's all run on anybody that can help, volunteer, donate, be involved. And right now we had 7 apartments that first started. Now we have 15 apartments that are completely full. Mm-hmm. And we have the other apartment is now an office, which we'd love to be able to have that be an apartment. Mm-hmm. But there's also another building attached that we're hoping that if we can take that as well and be able to have that expand, it'll allow for a community center, it'll allow for area for more apartments to be available for more, transplant recipients as well. And that's our thing. We just want to make it bigger and grow, get more apartments. There's just not enough for us, to be able to help these people. I mean, there's plenty of a need.
Well, being here is definitely going to help spread that awareness. Yes. Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank
we
you.
Appreciate it.
Joining me now is the person behind bringing the TGA to Cleveland. He is the CEO of the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, David Gilbert. Now, David, I heard there's a process to kind of get the games in a certain city. Can you kind of tell me the story behind your proposal?
Sure. Well, we actually looked at this 10 years ago when the games was owned by the National Kidney Foundation, had gone to see it. we thought it was something that would really make sense for Cleveland, particularly because of the strength of our medical community, our transplant centers, and with what the Sports Commission does in the hosting of major multi-sport events. And it really was the right partnership. Ultimately, with the changeover, we waited a few years. We went back at this about 3 years ago, partnered up with LifeBank, who's been an amazing partner, and we went in together on the bid. And these do take a long time. The bid process is probably about sometimes up to a year long, and you have an entire bid packet you fill out. You have presentations. TGA came to Cleveland, did a site visit, met with a lot of our folks, and then ultimately it was awarded to Cleveland over 2 years ago. And then, of course, you spend a long time in planning it.
So what kind of was the deciding factor in your proposal that got the games in Cleveland?
We think there were really a couple of things. One is our community's history and success at hosting large multi-sport events. Things like the National Senior Games, the Gay Games, the International Children's Games that we have run, we have managed, and it's been very successful. The Sports Commission has a full-time staff of 14 that does nothing but bring events to town and run major events. So TGA as a national organization is very small. So to have that organization behind it that can help run and manage and put things like this on is very important. But also, in teaming up with LifeBank, we knew that we had the right OPO behind us. We had the clinic and university hospitals as phenomenal transplant centers behind it. And I think we also showed them that we had a broad community desire to do this, that we really wanted them here, that what they represent means a lot to us. This is not, we don't see this as hosting a sporting event. It really is an event that can be utilized to advance a very important community issue in organ and tissue donation. And so I think they were very excited by the fact that we understood that by hosting them here, we could not only make the games great, but we could help utilize the games to save more lives.
So kind of what has been your everyday life like the past few years, and what's your life been like the past few days getting this all set up?
Well, we have an unbelievable staff. They've been involved, and when I say me, it's really about our entire staff. They've been involved in working on all the programming, all the event management, all the marketing communications, all the logistics, from transportation to the venues to sport operations, to recruiting and managing all the volunteers. So we had not only all of our 14 staff involved in the planning and here, we hired an additional 2 staff as part of the budget of the event who've been with us for almost 2 years working on nothing but this event. And then of course we have regular ongoing meetings with our community partners, with LifeBank, with Eversight Ohio, with other OPOs from around Ohio, and it's been great because it's not an effort we could do alone. It's not an effort LifeBank could do alone, or quite frankly TGA themselves. It's really been this phenomenal partnership that's allowed this to happen, and every day we think through what we could do to prepare, what we could do to make it better, what we could do to make it more impactful while it's here. And of course, when it's here, it's a lot of work. You prepare for a long time for an event, and when it's here, we always tell our staff to take the time at some point during an event to step back and look around and really take in what you've accomplished and enjoy the event, even if it's for 5 minutes, because something like this, you can plan for 2 years and all of a sudden you've missed it because you're working these 20-hour days, as we talked about earlier, and you don't even realize what's going on. So it is important too to step back and appreciate what's going on. And I think for me, my favorite part is just seeing all of these people on the streets. Walk around downtown and you see people with their credentials. You see Team Pittsburgh and Team Louisville and Team Louisiana, and they're so excited. And you hear them. I love watching the interaction between the people who are here to participate and locals, because locals go up and ask them their stories and tell them how appreciative they are that they're in Cleveland. And I think that the participants love the fact that they're being recognized that they are here, and it's really neat to see.
Because I'm sure people around Cleveland, they're not really familiar with the games at all, and some of the participants are just seeing Cleveland in the atmosphere for the first time.
Yes.
So what do you think participants are gaining from being in Cleveland, and what do you think the people of Cleveland are getting from this great community of people?
It's a great question. I think what we have seen is, one, for the participants, for us, one of the reasons we like to host events like this is it adds so much excitement and vibrancy to the community, but it also takes these 10,000 or more people who are here and gets them to change their perception of our city. We know Cleveland for many years has had a perception issue, but we've also researched that the perception of people who have never been here versus those who visit is dramatically different. So to have these people in town, they absolutely, it changes their perception of Cleveland, and within their networks it changes perceptions even more. I think for our community, what's really important is I love talking to people who, I've been in meetings all this week, and people go out of their way to say, I didn't know about this transplant games, but I've heard about it, and it's so cool. Yeah. They didn't even know it existed, and now they have a much better appreciation of not only the games, but organ and tissue donation. And so for us, we host a lot of events each year, probably 10 to 12 national events each year. A lot of Olympic sport championship events, NCAA championships, other events that we own and operate. But you look for these unique opportunities where hosting a sporting event can change a community, can advance a really important issue, whether it's active aging or rights of the LGBT community, or some really interesting issues, but sometimes hosting an event, because it gets the community's attention, can do far more. So the media around this has been tremendous, and even with the backdrop and the Cavs championship run and the Republican convention just a month away, sucking a lot of the air out of the media because there's so much attention. It's amazing how much attention the Transplant Games has been getting, and that's exciting for us.
And speaking of the attention it's getting, this is the first year for the show that we're even on right now. So what are you hoping it can do for not only the games, but the people that are watching it?
Well, I think by having this, I think what we've tried to do is look at what the games have done in the past and try to help add other dimensions that make the games better than the last place they've been, and hopefully the next place will do the same. That every time you have an event, you try to you want pride in saying that our community was a great host and adding dimensions. But to me, I think what this does is it adds a dimension, not just about the sports are a little better or the transportation might be done, but more how do you advance the cause behind it. So I think by having this, I think by doing these interviews and letting more of the world see what these games are, not just in Northeast Ohio, but obviously potentially all around the world, that people can gain an even greater understanding of how hosting this event really can make a difference in people's lives, and in the end can help save lives.
And the games are all about, spreading the awareness of how important organ, tissue, and eye donation is, and what you said, the locals, like interacting with the participants. So what are you so excited to be, or why are you so excited to be a part of the games?
Well, I think because it's making a difference. It's making a difference in our community. Any major event adds economic infusion, adds visibility, and that's wonderful. We're proud of that with every event that we host. This adds something very different, that hosting this event above more than any other event you can host actually changes a community and can change lives.
For sure, it's definitely saving a lot of lives while we're here. I'm sure some people are going to the DMV and checking yes on that box.
Absolutely, and that's what we hope. If there's some measurable out of this at the end, if we can have elevated, there's almost 11 million people in the state of Ohio. I don't know how many licensed drivers, but millions and millions. If having these games here can just elevate that by 0.5%, it will, as you said, Rachel, it will save lives.
For sure, and you definitely have put on a great event here. Everyone is having fun. I got cornhole over there, and everyone's just having a really great time. Thanks so much, David.
Well, thanks for having me.
Good.
I am a recipient. I am a 2-time heart recipient. My first heart was because of postpartum cardiomyopathy after I had my third daughter. And the second heart came on the 20-year anniversary of the first heart, and that was 3 years ago. So I'm 23 years strong.
I've had 2 liver transplants, first one in '88, second one in '93, so I'm 28 and 23 years out.
36 years. That's the reason for these jerseys. Everybody over the quarter century has a jersey on.
I found out that I had vasculopathy when the 2012 games were happening. I went for my medical waiver and they found it on a stress echo. In the pool swimming, like pushing really hard, feeling great. I go and I have the stress echo, and they said, you know, just wait here for a little bit, and I was a little aggravated with the annoying people that were around me, so I just left. And they called the next day and said, we think you need to come in for a cath. And that's where they found it, and they said that it was, it could be a while or not, you know, it just depended. And unfortunately, I had a very aggressive case of vasculopathy. And between May and January, I had 14 heart stents put in, and the new heart came on the 20th anniversary. I was in the hospital that day. I was in the operating room that night, and they finished the next day.
Just thanking the donors and just seeing everybody that I've seen in the past, being back together with different, as we say, family.
Well, this is fabulous. I've never been to a transplant game before or met as many people as I've met who've had transplants as well as me. I'm originally from Pittsburgh. I live in Tennessee, and I came here to meet more recipients, and I'm loving it. It's amazing. I mean, I just thank God every day I can get up and I can be this blessed.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? I'm Annie DeShant. I saw you on Saturday night at Public Hall and sang for you a theme song called Here I Am, which is over there if you'd like a copy of it. I'm just going to sing you a song today and then do an interview. It's so good to see you and be with you. So thank you for being here. You are my second chance. You make me wanna try again. You shine a light on a new day. You bring it into a dark night, telling me it'll be alright. Help me see in a different way. You are like the sun. Thank you, thank you.
Joining me now is the woman behind your theme song for this year's game, Annie DeShane. Now, Here I Am was specifically written for this year's games, correct?
Yes.
So can you kind of tell me your thought behind each of those lyrics?
Well, I had to get to know my subject. I mean, they say write what you know about, and I didn't know much when I was asked to do this. So I spoke with Bill Ryan and Sue Brady and asked them to help me to connect with transplant recipients, donor families, donors. So they gave me links to the online sites. So I just started to read story after story about recipients and donors. I also got on the Facebook page and started to talk to recipients and donors, and I specifically asked, what is it that you're thinking about when you're about to compete? You know, if you're standing on a starting line. I had this image in my head of someone on a starting line on a track about to run a sprint, and I wanted to know what was going through their head. And overall, the response was, I'm always thinking of my donor. You know, that was from the recipients. So the first line of the song is, here I am on the edge of something beautiful. And I would just picture that line, you know, that starting line, and the thought that I know you're with me, you know. So I really just had to get to know the people involved. And then I just soaked it all in, and I just remember lying on my couch and thinking, okay, now just talk to me, you know, let's just talk to me. And
well, I think every line of that song kind of really resonates with the people here in Cleveland. So you said you were talking to them online. What's it like to really see them in person and talk to them face to face?
Even more powerful, you know, I mean, you're hearing their specific story, and of course when you're in the presence of the person who that story is about, it always is more powerful. So it's just been a gift.
And I was reading up on you a little bit, and you kind of had a very impressive career, but you got your start here in Cleveland. So what's it kind of mean to be performing back here and for such a great cause?
It's everything. I mean, it's what you work all the years for. You know, you work toward things like this. You work at what you're doing, and then when things like this come along, you realize that that focus, you know, is paying off, and that's exactly what it's done.
And music really has a way to, you know, touch people in a way that just communication alone can't do. So what has music really done for you, and what do you think it's really doing to help everyone here?
I think, you know, for me, music has saved my life because as a kid, you would never guess this, but as a kid, I was a little bit shy. I was always a little bit different, and it allowed me to sort of have something with me. It was like having a best friend with you. Like I knew I could do that, you know? And that's not just in childhood, that extends into my adult life. And it does, it allows me to create relationships with people, to speak my mind. And so to be here to do that, to tell a story for someone. You know, when I was at Public Hall Saturday night, you know, people ask, what's it like to be in that big place with so many people? And my answer is, my job is to try to speak to everyone in that room. And it's not about, oh, how many people are here. It's like, who is here? And I have to speak to you with the song that I've written and then my presentation. And as long as I keep that in mind, that that's what I'm here for, to tell you a story, to tell you your story, to share your story. You're sharing with me, I'm sharing with you. That's what it's all about.
It's kind of reaching that person on a personal level, as in like you're speaking to them as an individual and not just the whole group. Exactly.
So if you watch the performance, the film footage, I hope that you'll see that I was, you know, looking up, looking in front of me, going stage right, because I want to be with all of the people there, you know.
It really has been a blessing for me as well to be able to hear so many stories and be able to share them with everyone else.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of all about that community sense of growth, building relationships. So have you ever heard about the transplant games before Sue and Bill kind of approached you about the song?
Never.
Never?
Never.
So what's it been like, kind of, this is your first time even being involved with anything like this. How's that for you?
Well, I think it energizes me to let more people know about it, you know, to reach out. Like everybody here, they're in, you know.
Yeah.
So I think we have to get out to the broader public, because that's the focus of this is to get more people to donate, right? And so it's inspired me to help to do that. And Bill and I have already spoken about this song, and let's make it reach even further. Because you're right, there's nothing like music to get people energized, to inspire, you know, nothing.
Well, your song is surely resonating with everyone here,
Good.
and I'm sure once everyone else hears it, they will do the same. Look into organ, tissue, and eye donation.
Right.
Thank you so much for helping spread this message and really grow the community.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks.
Before I go, let's take a look and see all the events in store for today.
Well, we are quickly running out of time here, but don't you worry, we have one more show tomorrow at 2. Be sure to follow us on social media at Transplant Games. I'm your host, Rachel Walbrown, and I'll see you tomorrow.